Hey, Dr. Von Duke here with another rubric for the Special Education at TPA portfolio. What is the guiding question for rubric 9? In rubric 9, you're asked to connect your teaching strategies between the student's needs, academic needs or strengths, your teaching strategy, and the learning objectives leading to the learning goal. So you're basically connecting those dots. Hi, I'm Dr. Von Duke. I'm a professor of education. I've been consulting or teaching courses on the TPA secondary, special education, and early childhood portfolios, especially for the past 6 years. I have a 100% pass rate in supporting my students and clients who I work with through this channel. I have this channel as a result of my desire to help lessen the mental burden of this complicated task, mainly because you guys are in your senior year or second year of your master's program. You are trying to teach in your first year or your student teaching year, and you've already got a lot going on mentally. And so it's not that you couldn't figure your way through the TPA in a normal construct, but if you want some ease in how to do it, that's what I'm providing here. So if this public video is not enough, then I also have, you'll see in the link below in the description, step-by-step courses that I have and consulting that I have. So let's get to it with this work. So rubric 9 is really organized around 3 key ideas. So again, it's question 6 on task 2, the instructional commentary, just to orient you. So you're going to first provide evidence of your student's strength and need. Now, I want to point out that if you were to get all 2s on your EdTPA for each question, you would have a score of 30. Most states require an EdTPA score of about 38. You can check that. I'll give you information on how to do that at the end if you don't know. And so therefore, only about 7 or 8 questions need to be at a level 3. However, all reviewers are not the same. Some may grade you a little bit harder, some may be a little bit easier, depending. So you always want to have a margin of there. Again, you don't want the highest score possible because this is not designed to measure your teaching strengths. It's only measures if somebody's field ready, some novice who's field ready. That's it. It doesn't measure anything important beyond that. So going for all 5s is not going to give you anything more than stress. I know you're a high performer, but so if you strategize, you want some 4s, you want some 2s, and you mostly want to target 3s. So the way I suggest that you strategize is if you have easily obtainable evidence for the score. So if you're targeting a 3 and you have evidence for a 4 that's there, then go for the 4. If you don't have the evidence, then don't worry about it, and certainly don't make it up, because that just gums up your answers and frustrates and misdirects the reviewer. And then you might actually get a lesser score even when you're trying to get a higher rubric score. So keep that advice in mind. So you're going to provide evidence of a strength and need in question 6 or rubric 9. You'll describe the instructional strategy materials or supports you use to meet that need or meet that strength. And then you're going to explain how your support connected the student to help that student obtain the learning goal. And so the strategy around rubric 9 is that you will name the strength or the need. Now, to get a score of 3, it focuses on needs. I do think that if you didn't have evidence of a student's need, or you didn't have a video clip of you meeting that need and you only had a strength, that's more unusual for candidates, because candidates tend to focus on students' academic needs and sort of struggle to remember their strengths. But just suppose you're unusual and you really only focus on the student's strength. I think that you could get away with answering that and still get a score of 3, and a reviewer would probably give it to you. But ideally, and on the rubric, it will tell you that you should provide evidence for a student's need. Well, how will you do that? Again, ideally, you will have given the student a baseline, and you will see on your baseline that you've created, if you look at my pre-rubric setup for creating your baseline and your lesson plans and so forth, you will look for the sub skills that a student needs in order to achieve the skills. You'll look for the skills that you're teaching, what they have and don't have, in terms of the sub skill. But supposing you didn't administer a baseline and you don't have that evidence, well, did you have some homework, some exit tickets, some in-class worksheet? Did you observe your student in some way? So all of those can comply as evidence, but you need to put the evidence there. You can't just say they have a need of a certain thing. You have to say why they have that need, what evidence you have of that need. All right, and then you're going to describe how your support meets that need and how it helps the student meet the learning goal. So that how part is important. The difference between a score of 2 and a score of 3, by the way, in a score of 2, you're answering this question vaguely, but the specific part is this how part, right? So if you were to say, I gave my student a graphic organizer and taught them how to use it so that I could lessen the cognitive load, they would put, one part in part A, one part in part B, and another part in part C, and then they could move them all together, right? That would be a strategy. And lessening a cognitive load is maybe a term you haven't heard. I think I might have made it up. No, but it is a function of a lot of what we do. It's like we're holding a part of the kid's mind in some way, either in our hands, or we're voicing for them in some way, or we're putting it on a graphic organizer, or we're giving that reminder, or we're putting 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers up. So we're holding part of the cognitive load for them so that they can get to that skill, right? And get all those moving parts working. Another thing you might do if it's a strength is taking a skill that they already have or a concept they already have and building on that from the place where they're already strong. So supposing you were teaching your student CVC patterns, reading patterns phonetically, you would want to build on the letter sounds that they already have solidly in their minds. That would be a sub-skill or a pre-skill. And then you would link to that strength by choosing a worksheet, choosing tasks, choosing materials that are based on that, right? So that's a good way to show how you have the student strength, your instructional strategy, and where you're going with it. Again, those 3 pieces have to be added together. For a score of 4, you're going to talk about the strength and the need. So not one or the other, but both. And then for a score of 5, and don't stress this one unless you actually have the evidence there and it was in your lesson plans and you did it easily. Don't make it up. Don't try to make it happen. It's not important. You'll just gum up your answers. But if you have a score of 4, so you have evidence for a strength and a need and all the parts that I'm telling you about, then you can also add on a developmentally appropriate self-directed learning strategy. If you don't have a strength and need, don't worry about answering and trying to get a 5. So don't answer 6B on the commentary because that's where the score of 5 comes in. Just let it go. It's not important. You can leave it blank. You can say no evidence. If you had a self-directed learning strategy, so for instance, supposing you had a series of steps that the student would follow and then an answer key. And so you guided them through, you taught them how to use that. And then you let them check their work and then maybe total their score based on the going through and checking their work, right? That would be you teaching, assuming that's developmentally appropriate. So you've got a 4th grader or 5th grader. That would be a developmentally appropriate self-directed learning strategy that you would be working with, encouraging your learner to do. Okay, so before sort of moving on with the end of this video, I suggest that you, well, of course, it's short, you can watch all of it, but make sure you stop before you draft your evidence. Look at your learning videos and look for places where you provided instructional modeling to support your students' needs or their strengths. Where did you link to and expand on their strengths? Where did you support them, maybe hold some of the cognitive load so that they could achieve the learning goal? Timestamp that. Now, when you timestamp, you want to select before and after time, and you want to have a time in there that's long enough so that the reviewer can sort of orient themselves to what's happening and what you did and how that's worked out. And believe me, the reviewer cannot give you a score without this evidence, and they will go back and look at your timestamped section. So do this carefully. And then pick the best evidence for strength and the best evidence for need within the constraints of what you can turn in. So let me explain that a minute. Very often students they give 3 lessons minimum, and they will film that in 3 different sections, right? And supposing your evidence for a strength is in lesson 1 and your evidence for a need is in lesson 3, but lesson 2 has other good stuff that you want to show for other questions. You only get to upload 2 video files and you cannot join them together. So this is critical for you to consider what is the best timestamp evidence of that need or strength that also falls into the other evidence that I'm trying to show the reviewer, right? So keep that in mind. And then choosing your best examples on the clips that you're going to turn in, go ahead and transcribe those clips. Now, a little commercial here, as always, if you find, because the mental burden on this is high, if you want some help, so with me carrying some of your cognitive load, there's a little bit more detailed help if you go in the description below, and there's some low cost courses per rubric. So if there's a particular rubric that you need support in, you can go ahead and purchase a more detailed description there. I have a draft document, notes on writing it up. And I take you a bit more stepwise through the process. I walk you through the commentary and through the rubrics. And then if you find that even that is a little bit